Welcome back to English Fix Lab. Let me ask you something honest. How many English words do you know right now? 500? 1,000? Maybe even 2,000? And yet, when someone speaks to you in English, your mind goes blank. The words disappear. The sentences fall apart. You freeze. You have studied. You have memorized. You have written lists and lists of vocabulary. So why is speaking still so hard?
Because memorizing is not thinking. And thinking is the only thing that actually works.
Have you ever met someone who never studied grammar but speaks English confidently?
That person did not memorize their way there. They trained their brain to process English as a living system, not a list of words to recall.
Is there a difference between knowing English and thinking in English?
Yes, and that difference is everything knowing lives in your memory, but thinking lives in your instinct. Here is what most students do. They open a vocabulary app. They see the word ambitious. They read the meaning. They repeat it 10 times. They close the app and feel productive. 2 days later, someone asks them to describe themselves in English, and the word ambitious is completely gone. Not because they are lazy, not because they are unintelligent, but because their brain never connected that word to a feeling, a moment, a real thought. It was stored like a file that was never opened again. Your brain does not keep what it does not use in context.
So, what does thinking in English actually mean?
It means your brain stops translating from your first language and starts generating English directly from your thoughts.
Can everyone learn to do this?
Every single person listening right now can do this. It is not a talent, it is a training. Think about when you learned to ride a bicycle. In the beginning, you thought about every single movement. Left foot, right foot, balance, hands, turn. It was exhausting. But after weeks of practice, you stopped thinking about it. Your body just knew. English works exactly the same way. In the beginning, you translate. You think in your language, build the sentence, then convert it. That process is slow, and it breaks your confidence every single time. But when you train your brain differently, something changes. You stop converting. You start creating.
What is the biggest mistake English learners make every single day?
They treat English like a subject to study instead of a skill to build inside their mind.
Is studying grammar wrong?
Grammar is a tool, not a destination. Learning rules without using them in real thought is like reading a recipe and never cooking the meal. Here is a story. A student named Rania studied English for 6 years in school. She passed every exam. She memorized every tense, every irregular verb, every preposition rule. But when she traveled abroad for the first time, and someone at the airport asked her a simple question, "Are you here for work or vacation?" she could not answer. Her mouth opened. Nothing came out. She looked down. She felt ashamed. She told me later, "I knew the answer in my head, but my brain would not let it out." That is not a vocabulary problem. That is a wiring problem. Her brain had been trained to perform English on paper, not to produce it in real life. And that wiring can be changed. That is exactly what we are here to do today.
Why do some people improve so fast while others stay stuck for years?
The fast improvers are not smarter. They are using their brain the right way.
Does confidence come before fluency or after it?
Confidence and fluency grow together. You cannot wait for one before building the other. So here is the method. It has 3 parts, and each part is something you can start today, not someday. The first part is called sense connection. Instead of memorizing a word alone, you connect it to a sense, a feeling, a picture, a sound. When you learn the word exhausted, do not write it 10 times. Instead, close your eyes and remember the last time you were truly exhausted. Your body heavy. Your eyes tired. Your mind slow. Now say the word out loud. Exhausted. That word now has a home in your brain. It is attached to something real. Your brain will not let it go because it is connected to an experience, not just a definition.
Does this take more time than normal memorization?
It takes the same amount of time, but the result lasts 10 times longer.
Can you do this with any word?
Yes, every word you learn from today, attach it to a moment, an image, or a feeling that belongs to you personally. The second part is called inner monologue training. This is the most powerful habit you will ever build as an English learner. Starting today, you are going to narrate your own life in English inside your head. Not out loud, just in your mind. When you wake up in the morning, instead of thinking in your first language, you say to yourself in English, "I am tired. The room is cold. I need coffee. I have a lot to do today." Simple sentences. Imperfect sentences. It does not matter. You are not performing for anyone. You are training your brain to generate English without a translator standing in the middle.
What if you make mistakes during inner monologue training?
Mistakes during this exercise are not failures. They are your brain finding the gaps it needs to fill.
Is this how children learn their first language?
Exactly, children narrate their world constantly, and that narration builds fluency faster than any textbook ever could. The third part is called response conditioning. This is where you take the most common questions you hear in English questions like, "How are you? What do you think? Can you explain that? What happened?" and you practice giving real, extended answers out loud. Not one-word answers, not fine or good or yes. Full answers. Honest answers. Answers that sound like a real person talking, because that is what you are. A real person with real thoughts. And your English should carry those thoughts clearly and naturally.
Why do most learners freeze when asked simple questions?
Because they have practiced reading and writing English, but never practice responding in real time under real pressure.
Can response conditioning be practiced alone at home?
Absolutely, record yourself answering 10 common questions every day, and within 30 days, you will not recognize the difference. You are not someone who cannot speak English. You are someone who was never taught how to think in English. That is not your fault. But from this moment, it is your responsibility. And you are already doing something about it by being here right now. And let us keep going because this is where everything changes. You now know the 3 parts of the method: sense connection, inner monologue training, response conditioning. But knowing a method and living a method are 2 completely different things. So in this section, we are going to go deeper. We are going to talk about why your brain resists English, even when you want it badly. We are going to talk about the identity shift that every fluent speaker goes through. And we are going to give you one concrete exercise you can do tonight, not next week, not when you feel ready tonight.
Why does your brain resist a new language even when you are motivated to learn it?
Because your brain is not resisting English, it is protecting the identity it already knows.
Is your first language just a communication tool?
No, your first language is tied to your personality, your humor, your emotions, and your sense of self, and switching languages feels like switching who you are. This is something nobody talks about in English learning. When you try to speak English and you stumble, the discomfort you feel is not just embarrassment. It is something deeper. It is the feeling of not being yourself. In your own language, you are funny. You are confident. You can explain complex ideas. You can tell stories that make people laugh. But in English, suddenly you feel like a child. Simple, limited, small. And that feeling is so uncomfortable that your brain starts to avoid it. You stop practicing. You tell yourself you will try again tomorrow. And tomorrow becomes next week, and next week becomes never.
Does this mean something is wrong with you?
It means something very human is happening inside you, and understanding it is the first step to moving past it.
Can you be your full self in English?
Yes, but only after you give yourself permission to be imperfect in English first. Here is the identity shift that changes everything. You have to stop thinking of English as a foreign language you are borrowing and start thinking of it as a second self you are building. Not a translation of who you are, a new dimension of who you are. The English version of you is not less funny, less smart, or less real. The English version of you is just younger. Still learning to walk. Still finding the right words. And that is completely okay, because every single fluent speaker you admire was once exactly where you are right now.
What do fluent speakers have that struggling learners do not?
Not better memory, not more talent. They have made peace with sounding imperfect while they grow.
Is fluency about perfection?
Fluency is about flow. A river does not stop moving because there are rocks in the way. It moves around them and keeps going. Think about the most confident English speaker you know personally. Someone in your life or someone you watch online. Do they never make mistakes? Of course they do. They mispronounce words. They forget vocabulary sometimes. They pause and search for the right phrase. But they keep talking. They do not stop and apologize for every error. They do not freeze and look at the floor. They trust themselves enough to keep the conversation moving. And that trust, that self-permission, is what you are going to build starting today.
So how do you actually build that trust?
You build it through repetition in low-stakes situations before you need it in high-stakes ones.
What is a low-stakes situation for English practice?
Any moment where making a mistake costs you nothing, talking to yourself, recording voice notes, narrating your commute, describing what you see around you. Here is your concrete exercise for tonight. It is called the 3-minute mirror method. You are going to stand in front of a mirror, set a timer for 3 minutes, and talk. In English. Out loud. About anything. What you did today. What you are thinking about. What you are worried about. What made you smile. It does not matter what the topic is. What matters is that you keep talking for the full 3 minutes without stopping, without translating in your head first, without correcting yourself mid-sentence. If you lose a word, describe it instead. If you forget a grammar rule, ignore it and move on. The goal of this exercise is not accuracy. The goal is momentum. Because momentum is what fluency is actually made of.
What happens in your brain during the 3-minute mirror method?
Your brain starts to bypass the translation layer and reach directly for English patterns it has been absorbing without you realizing it.
Will it feel uncomfortable the first time?
It will feel deeply uncomfortable, and that discomfort is proof that real rewiring is happening. Do this every single day for 30 days. Not for 30 minutes. Not for an hour. 3 minutes. That is all. 3 minutes of uninterrupted English output every day will do more for your speaking ability than 3 hours of passive vocabulary study every week. Because output is where fluency lives. You cannot read your way to speaking. You cannot watch your way to speaking. You have to speak your way to speaking. And the mirror removes the biggest obstacle. Most learners face the fear of being judged because the only person in the room is you.
Is 3 minutes really enough to make a difference?
3 consistent minutes rewires more than 3 inconsistent hours. The brain responds to regularity, not intensity alone.
What should you do after the 3 minutes?
Listen back to yourself once a week, not to criticize, but to notice how much further your sentences are traveling compared to day 1. Now let us talk about something that will accelerate everything else you are doing. It is called contextual immersion, and it is not what most people think it is. Contextual immersion does not mean watching English movies all day with subtitles on hoping something sticks. Real contextual immersion means choosing one area of your real life, your job, your hobby, your daily routine, and consuming and creating English only inside that specific world.
Why is focused immersion more powerful than general immersion?
Because your brain builds language networks around meaning and relevance. English about something you already care about enters faster and stays longer.
If you love cooking, what should you do?
Watch cooking videos in English. Read recipes in English. Describe your own cooking process out loud in English. Build your English world inside the world you already love.
If you work in technology, what should you do?
Read 1 industry article in English per day. Summarize it out loud in your own English words, and within 90 days your professional English will feel like a native environment. You are not just an English learner anymore. From today, you are an English builder. You are constructing a second mind, one thought at a time, one sentence at a time, one brave 3-minute conversation at a time. The people who become fluent are not the ones who studied the hardest. They are the ones who refused to stop. They are the ones who talked to mirrors and made mistakes and laughed at themselves and tried again the next morning. That is who you are becoming right now. An English Fix Lab is here every single step of the way. If this helped you today, share this video with one person who is struggling with English. Leave a comment below and tell me which of the 3 parts of the method are you starting with tonight? And if you are not subscribed yet, do it now, because every week we bring you tools like this that actually move the needle. Keep building. Keep thinking. Keep going.